Commission podcast is a spirited discussion with myself and a couple of my longtime colleagues in the profession. Our discussions are based solely on our own opinions and do not reflect the opinions or views of our employers, the American Planning Association, or even our alma maters. So grab a seat in the City Hall, dig out an old copy of Robert's Rules, and for goodness sakes, read your packet. The Planning Commission is now in session.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Planning Commission podcast. Oh man, we're probably going to piss some people off today, and that's
Excited.
okay. This is exactly why we created this podcast, is to challenge the status quo of our industry. Today's episode, accredited if the check processed. AICP. What is AICP? What are the positives? What are the not so positives? How can it be made better? That is what we're going to explore today. And we're going to do it in a way that hopefully is constructive, certainly passionate. I know that, no doubt about it. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to first of all ask my fellow commissioners, in what other ways of life are you certified? Give me something that you're certified to do that maybe not too many people know about. Jess, I'm going to put you on the spot first. We know you're kind of a nerd. You're a self-taught reader. You have a degree in Morse code, and you have your own. I don't think we ever learned. What is your name? Your what is it? The radio freak. What is it that you do?
The call sign?
Yes, what's your call sign? Yeah.
KF4BCZ.
Oh, that's boring. Come on.
Is that you have that on a personalized license plate, right?
I don't, but I had it on a little name tag one time, and I still have that somewhere.
There you go.
So you're certified in ham radio.
Ham radio. Thank you.
Certified. I'm certifiable, that's for sure.
That's true. That's true.
You know what I have that's kind of a funny thing is I have a high school diploma in piano performance from the National Association of Piano Teachers. Yeah.
Woo! You're going to do our new intro with your pianist skills.
Listen,
we need to.
You know what's funny though is it takes you 10 years to do it. Like you have to, you do. It's a 10-year process.
So unlike AICP, it's like real and useful. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I've always kept a side job playing for churches.
Yeah.
That, little churches.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it got me through college. I made pretty good money. Yeah. But that was kind of great. It takes 10 years, and your 10th year, and you do this your senior year in high school, is you have to perform 10 different musician skills, and something like 3 of them are like sight reading, improvisation, that kind of stuff, and then you have to have 7 memorized performance pieces on the piano that are from different eras of music. So
God, stop bragging already. God, you're gonna.
Dude, I was 17. I just think that you're just a sponge when you're a kid. Like I couldn't do that today. I don't even know if I know what
tambourine
notes are.
like the best of them, but
Oh
Dawn, what's your certification? What don't we know?
2 that come to mind.
One,
one is certified in clogging.
Yes,
a great Southern Appalachia thing. I've got the clogging trophy to prove it. I've got the pictures from Santa's Land in Cherokee, North Carolina, and the clogging competition I won in my hometown of Franklin, North Carolina, in the high school gymnasium. So get enough of the
wait. I'm having a mental image of you being carried off the stage with your little clogs on your feet and holding that trophy up high, and just
it was Rudy style. People were chanting my name.
Dan.
The red bandana material my mom had tied to that white Oxford shirt. Oh yeah.
God, that is a great image.
That was a good one. The other one is I'm certified in pouring Guinness. When I was at the Guinness brewery, you could take this class and they teach you how to hold the glass at the right angle, and you got to aim the spout toward that harp that's on the official Guinness glass, and that's how you get kind of that perfect flow and that perfect head.
Nice. Perfect head. All right. Well, so what are my certifications? I legitimately had certifications in personal training and know my way around a gym. It's my passion. It's where you'll see me spending 5 or 6 days a week. And enjoy that. But my other certification, I'm a pretty wicked pancake maker. My girls love my pancakes, and
Kid
I'm always
approved.
yes, always striving for, what the key is? I'll share with my listeners. The key is you need to really fluff up your egg whites. Separate your eggs and get those egg white peaks. Now, that's where you get
That's
the layers
more
of
important than
goodness.
sifting the flour.
Oh,
Yeah.
Really?
The flour
That
comes
gets
kind of sifted.
that gets the air. That gets airiness in that
Right.
pancake. So, all right, Don, hit us. Whiskey pairing for AICP, accredited if check processed. Oh, that hurts.
This is the perfect whiskey for AICP, and it is Larceny bourbon.
Oh God, that's rough.
You're
Larceny
so
bourbon. Well, and it comes from the Heaven Hill Distillery, which I was just there in May. I love this place. I love most of their products. It's a wheated bourbon. It's really sweet. But also another thing, it's named after John E. Fitzgerald, also of Old Fitzgerald bourbon name, and the only person who has 2 whiskeys named after him. And the reason it's named Larceny is he would have to go in and inspect certain barrels as a government official, and he would often take some of the best samples of the best barrels home with him.
Yes.
In the evenings. Yeah. So I say, if the check clears, you can get your certification, and here's your Larceny to pair with that AICP.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. All right. So why are we even having this conversation? Well, it's been something that we have discussed a whole lot over the last bunch of years. And recently, there was a really amazing discussion on LinkedIn that I think really hit the nail on the head. And I'm going to briefly read something. Give me just a second, because I think this will set the stage. So I won't necessarily say who wrote this. I don't think that's fair to put their name out there like that, but I will read what they wrote. All right. I'm going to let my AICP certification lapse this year. This is despite my employer willing to pay for it entirely, and despite all the studying I did to earn it back in 2018. I'm doing it because, honestly, I don't see the value in it. Maybe there's more value in it for more traditional city planners. I don't know, but for me, absolutely none. But beyond that, I am letting it lapse because I see it as part of a, quote, certification industrial complex, unquote, where certification does nothing but gatekeep and build walls to keep people out. Sometimes a certification is needed to ensure the safety in design or construction, but far more often, I see it as a way to extract money and wealth in the name of perceived authenticity and authority. We ask people to get degrees to prove their value to an industry, which costs thousands of dollars. Then we ask people to get graduate degrees to prove their value in an industry, which costs thousands of more dollars. Then we ask people to get certified to prove their value to an industry, which costs thousands of dollars. It's too much, too far, too little. I fully support anyone who wants to get their AICP, but I do not support the idea of an AICP certification is needed or necessary within the planning profession. Commissioners, your reaction to that?
Here.
I second that motion.
Oh my gosh.
I think what he's getting at is something that, I can go back to stuff, Jess, back when we were in North Carolina and with Scott Lane and attending those conferences. I think there's a bubbling frustration within the industry over the price and the ultimate value that LinkedIn post you put up there just synthesizes it in so many ways. And we hear that a lot. And so it's really the question, like you said in the intro, Commissioner Danley, is what's the better way to do this? What's the better way to tear it down and rebuild it into something that reflects that? Jess?
You said it. And you know what the thing is that I got my AICP in 2016, and I got it because I had an employer who said, you got to do this. If you're going to be a planner in a municipal government, we need you to have your AICP. And I said, okay, all right, let's do it. And I advocated for others getting the AICP because of the experience I had prepping for the AICP. It was an exam, it was fine. But what I learned preparing for the exam, I felt like was going to be helpful to others working in land use planning like I was. And so it was sort of this history of planning, laws, what kind of got us to where we are today, and understanding those basics, I think, made a lot of sense. But I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I came from, quote, a non-classical planning training. I don't even know what that means, but it's been said to me before that people that have classical planning educations, and I have, of course, an engineering education. And, I was like, well, okay, I need to get up to snuff on what municipal planners do. Turns out municipal planners don't do anything different than engineers in the way that they look at code, just like engineers do, and they go, let's do what it says in the code. So I mean, it was, but and we've been talking about this a lot, especially with traffic engineers and things we've had on here, is that part of it is looking at code, part of it is using tools to help us forecast or whatever we're doing, but a big part of it is like being able to tie all those pieces together and be specific in an area. And this is why at the end of the day, planners can really never make money, because everything's customized, but that's a different story.
So Chris, you're the only one on this commission who's never had it and never sat for the
and
exam.
Never will. Like
you don't have an AICP?
So wait. We've got 3 people here in 3 different scenarios. Jess, Jess, you took the exam and passed it and still have those letters F name. I took the exam and passed it, but I no longer am part of that, and I can tell you why. And Chris has never attempted it, never wanted to, never had a desire. You can tell by the look on his face on the video screen.
I wear that with pride.
Why do you wear that badge?
Yes, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
hey,
so
wait, I didn't know that about you, Chris. So now.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I have a scarlet letter.
I know.
But you know what? I love it.
You're like one of the smartest planners I know. You read books about stuff, and I'm like, how do you
Bingo.
know? I don't know.
I read books.
Bingo.
Did
Holy
you make
crap.
the reading list?
I read books.
You read books?
Well, yes. I have lots of books behind me. I've got several. I probably have 7 or 8 on my nightstand. That's how exciting I am. All about planning, right?
Okay. So why didn't you do this? I mean, come on.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you 2 stories about this. First of all, how it relates, because I've been on the other side of this planning AICP fence. And as I mentioned a minute ago, when I was a personal trainer, okay, I went in, I interviewed for the job. I had no background in personal training, but I was an enthusiast. I enjoyed working out. I thought, I'm a people person. This sounds like an interesting job. Let me go do it. Went in, they said, you're pretty good. This is going to work. We need you to go get certified. Okay, great. Let me go get certified. Went and read the little books, went into the weekend seminar, took the test, certified. Oh, okay. Well, now I can apparently make sure that you work your body as well as possible. I also was working with people who had 4-year kinesiology degrees and exercise science degrees and master's degrees and all of that stuff. And I know when they looked at me, and I came back on Monday after my little weekend seminar, and I have, look, here's my certification. I'm one of you, right? They're like, get the hell out of here. We spent all this time, dedicated to our craft academically, and you're not the same. And you know what? They're right. That doesn't mean that I can't continue to learn. It doesn't mean that I can't continue to be better and maybe even get a degree in that field later on, right? So I understood that. And it didn't mean that I was worthless per se, but it definitely meant that I didn't have necessarily the amount of knowledge that they did, at least initially. And again, on the job training over time completely matters. So fast forward to 2004, when I started grad school, master's degree in freaking urban and regional planning, 2 years of dedicated time of absolutely nothing but planning, right? Wrote a freaking 85-page thesis on the prospects of light rail in North Spokane, right? Like, I was the head of the freaking student APA chapter for the school, like all the things I was trying to do. And then I get out and I go get a real job. And I think it was maybe a few months later, they go, oh, you should go get AICP. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And they said, well, it's to show that you're dedicated. I'm like, oh, excuse me? Would you like to pay off my student loans to show you how dedicated I am? Right? Like, give me a break. So when I first started hearing about that, Then I started to pay attention and see, wait a minute, there's a bunch of people who call themselves planners who have no academic background or fundamentals in planning, but they took this test. So the shoe was completely on the other foot, right? And again, I'm looking at it and going, just like you, Jess, like, of course you could learn, you can be, after all the years of experience, yes, of course you're a valuable trainer. I don't want to suggest that, or not trainer, pardon me, but planner.
I'm that too.
That's not in any way to be disparaging whatsoever. Again, I give kudos to anybody who's taken that test. But when I started to hear about this notion of being dedicated, oh, kiss my what, because I could tell you some stories about where I've been, where Donna's been, all over this country, and the things that we've done, that if you don't think I'm dedicated in my professional life, or by the way, spending tons of hours outside of the profession, giving back to the field, you don't know who I am then, so I don't need the letters. Thank you very much.
And I think you get at a point too, where there was a rebuttal to that LinkedIn post that you read from somebody who was supportive of AICP, but in the way that if you did not come from a traditional background, if you were kind of non-classical, that there's maybe more of a reason to kind of prove your mettle in that. And for that, I kind of get it, but there's also this side of it that for me, and I don't know if this is actually believed or if it's just a selling point to try to get more people to take AICP from the people that shout it from the hills. If, I certainly have my time of kind of poking engineers, but, if an engineer is designing a bridge and they don't have the skills to do it and they do it incorrectly, somebody could die, right? An architect with a building, even a lawyer who's not certified but is representing somebody's interest, or an accountant, somebody's livelihood is definitely at stake in a very immediate sense. And I'm not saying planning doesn't have an impact on people's livelihoods, but it's not as much of a direct impact. And so the first thing for me is like professionals in the planning field that try to put it on those levels. It's like, no. Let's not. That's where you're going to lose me first. Let's recognize it for some other things. So we talked a little bit about impressions. I guess since Chris is the only one in the room that hasn't sat for the test itself, Jess, the test, the study coming from non-classical, what was your thoughts of that? Was it value? Was it lasting value? What's your perspective on sitting for and taking the AICP test?
So I am, clarifying, I have an undergraduate degree in civil and environmental engineering, in which I took some planning courses, regional and urban planning and urban transportation problems and things like that. And then in graduate school, I have a civil engineering degree, a master's in civil engineering, but it's in specifically in transportation. So I have 12 hours in transportation design type things like traffic and interchange design, things like that. And then I have another like 12 hours in or 12 or 15 hours in research and statistics, right? And I wrote a 60-page, I could do mine in 60 pages, Chris, a 60 page, whatever. So that was my education. And it was focused a lot in traffic, right? Which as a planner, that was a really good background to have. But when I went to work in municipal planning and I needed to deal with code and law and that kind of thing, I needed to understand a little bit more. And the type of human being I am is I do really well with like a formal training or a formal education and then going and applying that on the job. I don't catch on as quick, like just cold out on the job. I'm a little bit better if you give me a little prep and then I go in and apply it. So for me, it was really valuable, but I mean, I just paid my dues and they were like $800. And I'm really confused about
where's that going.
I don't know what's happening because I'm not a professional. Like it's not a license I have to have. And frankly, I don't know who is asking for AICPs right now at the level I'm at professionally. I mean, if you don't have one, they're like, oh, well, at least we don't have to pay for that. I mean, and I don't think, and it's one of those things I don't really understand. I mean, I took the exam. I have the certificate or whatever, like, okay, I did it. why do I gotta keep paying every year for it? You pay more to keep an AICP than a civil engineer does to keep their licensure every year.
And again, it's like
times 4, times 3 or 4.
Yeah. So your check has cleared, but you have no idea what's happening to it afterward. And I think for me, and I think I brought this up in one of our early episodes, we're just talking about the professional thing. It's also this fact that, Chris and I have both been self-employed for 10 years, and was certainly in the years before that where I had my certification. It was great that my employer, whether it was public sector or a private consultant, was paying for that. But the moment I had to start paying it myself, that's where I started questioning, what is the value of writing this $300 and some odd check every year? And I think I've admitted on here, I probably broke the code of ethics, because being self-employed, I would lie about my employment, my salary. So I would pay the lowest one, because I'm sitting there going, this is, for lack of a better word, bullshit, that me as a self-employed person is having to shell out the same as somebody whose agency's picking it up. And add to that, I'm completely on the hook for the professional development. So fast forward to 2020, I've been writing that check for $300 and some odd every year for 6 or 7 years. COVID hits. The time of year it was due. My dad died. Chris and I were both at the time looking at not necessarily a loss of projects, but delayed projects, and had the same income stuff. And so because of all of those things, I kind of just spaced it and didn't pay it. I'd gotten a divorce, so my address was different. I come around last year and I pay my planning association dues, but I didn't catch on that AICP wasn't part of it. So then I get this nasty gram from APA National, because my check hadn't come to them, I guess, but I was still had the AICP on our website going, oh, you should stop using that. You're not paying. I'm like, what? And so I checked into it, and I'm sitting here going, okay, I had circumstances 2 years ago that a lot of things collided. So what do I need to do? Do I need to write the claim? Do I need to make the plea? Do I need to kiss the ring? Do I need to go before the panel to have it get reinstated? Oh no, you have to retake the effing test.
The exam?
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't need to be quizzed again on what the common scale is for USGS topographical.
And you have a master's,
Florida area ratio.
And you have a master's degree. So let's not forget, and you ran a planning department at a public agency, and you've served numerous volunteer positions in the world of planning, but yet prove yourself, Kostelik.
Take this exam so that's where I'm kind of like, I'm done with it because of that thing. And that to me just kind of points to back to the whiskey pairing, the larceny and the lunacy of this. And I take Chris's example. Here's Chris, a person who I would say in this profession in the last decade has come up with new methods and new ways and new things to solve planning conundrums for communities, primarily small and rural areas, because of where we are now in Idaho. If that doesn't count for something in being certified and establishing and pushing the practice, that's more meaningful to the people of Idaho than any 4 letters you could have after your name. And to me, that's just another example of that. So kind of bring it down to so we're going to build this back up. How do you have something in the planning profession that gets at something that's certified, something to document your professionalism? How do we make it better for the American Planning Association? Because right now, 66% of this planning commission isn't paying that check every year. What gets us to 100% being willing to write a check for something?
And I'll be the first to say, as I think I've been pretty clear, I'm pretty biased on this subject, and I think that, I don't know, there's such a part of me that's just kind of like, look, man, if you have achieved certainly a PhD, for crying out loud, but even a master's degree level, 2 years of dedicated time, Jess talked about, how, I don't remember how much time it was for you to study, but the idea of even just sort of preliminary theory and what is planning. I mean, that was an entire semester, right? And copious books that we had to read in planning school about all these different theories. And I'm like, okay, great. This is what some philosopher had in, 100 years ago. That's cool. So, but like, that's what we had to endure. So my point is that I guess, and again, I'm biased, but like if you've achieved that and you've earned that level of academic foothold, then I don't know, to me it's almost like, yeah, you're kind of good. You've got here's your here's your letters, or there's a different threshold somehow.
So how is getting 3 random questions on an exam about the theory of planning testing your mettle of it, when it could be that your curriculum didn't cover that particular person's philosophy that year, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's part of my thinking would be, and then my other easier fix would be just like, again, going back to my days as a personal trainer, I'm good with taking the test if that's what it has to be, but don't make me pay every year. I'll go to conferences because I want to go to conferences. I want to learn. I want to be relevant. I don't want to just be sitting off on the sidelines and letting the world of planning pass me by, but for goodness sakes, $800 a year. Like if I had to face that, I mean, I got 2 girls that need to eat. That's who's going to get that $800, not somebody who I don't even know where that's coming from, so that's the sort of priority that I'm going to have on that.
Jess, how do you build a better AICP?
I mean, I think we're touching all over different things. Like, for example, the price does not seem to meet the value. I think there is some value in it, but what, administrative, we know we have to administer things, we have to print stuff. Yeah, I get that, but it's like, how is that at that price point? And then, and I like the idea of a study for kind of the basics sort of thing, understanding where it came from and things like that. But maybe that's not relevant to your job. One of the things I think is interesting about the AICP is we have one exam for a profession where we do a lot of different things, and some things are very detailed and niched. I mean, that exam, I studied, and I don't know, Chris, I don't know if this is good or bad, but I studied for about 60 days. I was trying to get a passing grade. I was not trying to like ace that thing. I mean, I think that if I had gotten one more question wrong, they were like, you're not a real planner. So
well, I think going back to the value piece of this, I think we touched on it a bit with the episode with Nolan about, the ethics requirements. And one of somebody that I know Chris, I think has met him, but Jess, you certainly know our colleague, Scott Lane.
Oh, yeah.
We're at the North Carolina planning conference one year, and they always schedule the law and ethics stuff on the Friday morning, so people stick around for it and things. And we're at the buffet and we're getting our muffins or whatever. And Scott and I are just kind of joking, oh yeah, another hour and a half of ethics. It's like, if you're not an ethical person going into that,
right,
this isn't going to change your perspective on it. And then I think what we joked about with Nolan is it's the same freaking question, are you going to make a development application go faster because a developer slips you a cup of coffee or some crap like that, instead of the real ethical issues that I think our profession is facing. And so the piece to me is like, evolve into some of these different things. You talked about the different subject areas, evolve into some of that. What is next, and make it vibrant and dynamic. And I think that is where I would feel there would be value added to go back into those waters.
And I just want to know,
go ahead,
Chris, I just want to know, what problem are we trying to solve? Like with taking this certification, a certified planner, what was the problem? Do we have a lot of people doing planning that were just really like didn't know how to balance the lead in the drinking water? I don't know. I'm just real confused about what.
I think that's a good question.
What harm was? What's going on here? And
I think that's a good question, and I think my answer would probably be that. And again, I know people who have zero academic perspective on planning, but have AICP, have a totally unrelated degree, and so I think that might have been a recognition by APA to say, hey, at the very least, let's make sure you do have a grounding in our profession. And I don't have I think that's sort of noble. I do think it sort of begs the question of like, if you're being hired to be a planner and you've not have any background in that, then I think that's the bigger issue, but that also speaks to how few planners are out there or how few planning programs there might be out there.
Let me ask this question. So like, you were saying we're hiring planners at don't have any background, the background's not related or something. So tell me, what does a planner one do that you couldn't hire a high school graduate to do? Why do we have to have a college degree to be a planner? I want to know. I want to know.
My answer to that would be that I don't think you are necessarily hiring somebody to simply be a planner one. I think you're hiring them at planner one with the hope that they can ascend the ladder of planning, right? So, and we've had previous guests, I think, with Lauren, for example, where she said, I can't trust you to do a plan if you can't ride the desk, right? But her answer was, I want you to do a plan, but I need you to get this started first. And so I think that's part of how I would answer that, is that I think you are hiring a prospect, so to speak, if you're hiring a planner one. And if you are hiring a prospect, then that person should have some demonstrable skills, at being able to fulfill the vision that you have for them. If you're just hiring warm bodies, then I can't fight that.
So what's the difference between a high school degree and a degree in, like, I don't know, computer science? Like, what's the difference between the skills they bring to the table? I am probably going to regret saying this, but I need to know, why are we demanding that an entry-level position has to have a college degree in a world where, when you get behind that permit counter, you need to know about those permits in that county? I mean, and they didn't teach you that at school. And I'm not advocating to not have an education. I'm just saying, what's going on, that if you can read well and you have, writing skills, and I can teach you how to do a technical report, which, by the way, most people don't have when they come out of any program. It's one of those things that I'm just going, well, I don't know. It just kind of, I mean, I have kids that came into work as planners, and they had an engineering degree in transportation engineering. They'd taken classes in planning. They'd written technical reports for labs and things. And they couldn't write worth a damn, and they didn't know what the census was. They couldn't use Excel. They'd never opened Excel. And I'm sitting there going, how do you balance your checkbook? So, I mean, I have a lot of trouble with, like, I don't know what the education, like the college education, is getting me for an entry-level planner, first of all. And then, I mean, because I'm a weird one. I didn't go into working in a permit counter. I went from being an engineering student that had, in theory, the knowledge to design a roadway, right? The base knowledge for that, to a job where that's what I did at the job, but you couldn't have taken me out of high school and had me do that. I needed the training.
Don, let me play devil's advocate. Let me play devil's advocate here for a second, because I think the AICP cheerleading squad, if they were to come out of their ivory tower after the checks are cashed in Chicago, would say, hey, we've accounted for that. If you have the master's degree, you don't have to work professionally as long to be eligible to sit for the exam. If you have the undergraduate degree in planning, you don't have to sit as long if you don't have the background. So I think what they're getting at there, that I don't disagree, is something related to core competency for it. But to me, it goes back to, okay, if I've established core competency through an advanced degree in planning specifically and 2 years of professional work, or you've established that in 8 years of professional work without a degree, you can be certified. And I think, to me, it gets back to, why do I have to pay that every year? Why do I have to be in those? And that, to me, is, I think, where I'm starting to land, is I get a basic level and preface it on those things. But after that, it's your fitness thing, Chris. You've established it, you're practicing, you're still showing competency, you're maybe advancing the practice. They should be good with that.
Yeah, maybe a touch up. I've always believed, like, our driver's license, if you don't move ever and you take a license test when you're 16 and let's say you're 60, well, if you don't ever have to go back and study a little bit and go, well, what laws have changed, right? That might be an idea. Maybe every 10 years or something, there'd be a minimal refresher. But anyway, we can obviously continue this conversation, and maybe next time we'll invite one of the folks who on LinkedIn participated in the conversation and get their perspective. But lots of different things to think about. challenging, we know, but that's what this podcast is also about, right? If we're just going to bless everything that planners do, then I don't think we're really doing our industry a good service that way. So with that, we're going to call this episode finished, and we appreciate you listening. We're growing our listenership, and hopefully we didn't turn anybody off with this one, but
I don't think we're going to be getting that Price is Right size check on the stage at the next National Planning Conference.
Yeah. So, all right, commissioners, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you all on the flip side.